You know that feeling, don't you? That feeling when you've messed up, when you said the wrong thing, or failed at something that mattered, and that voice in your head starts its loop, replaying the mistake, amplifying the embarrassment. It feels like a poison, a slow-acting venom of shame and anxiety spreading through your mind, telling you that you are fundamentally not good enough. And our first instinct, our most human instinct, is to look away, to numb it, to distract ourselves with a scroll, a drink, a binge watch, anything to avoid the sting. But what if an ancient story, hidden in a text you might think you know, holds a radically counterintuitive secret? What if the only way to heal the poison is to look directly at it? We live in a world that is obsessed with curation. Our social feeds are highlight reels, not just of our lives, but of our very selves. We filter our faces, we crop out our messes, we carefully craft captions that project success and confidence. We have become masters of presenting a flawless, integrated self to the world. But inside, it's a different story. Inside, for so many of us, there's a quiet chaos, a gnawing sense of being an imposter. We walk around with this deep, ambient anxiety that at any moment someone will discover the truth, that we are not as put together, as smart, or as good as we pretend to be. This is the cycle of self-condemnation. It's a prison we build for ourselves. The warden is our inner critic, and the walls are made of our own repressed shame. We have these parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable: the failures, the regrets, the insecurities, the cringy memories, the anger, the envy, and we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to lock them away. We think that by ignoring these parts, by pretending they don't exist, we can be free of them. But it's the opposite, isn't it? The more we push them down, the more powerful they become. They don't disappear. They fester. They leak out sideways as anxiety, as depression, as sudden bursts of anger, or as the persistent draining feeling that we are fundamentally stuck. We self-sabotage a new relationship because we're terrified of being seen. We procrastinate on a meaningful project because we're haunted by the fear of failure. The venom we try to ignore doesn't just go away, it accumulates, and eventually, it paralyzes us. This is the core modern problem. We are trying to achieve wholeness through amputation. We are trying to find peace by declaring war on ourselves, and it is exhausting. It is unsustainable, and it is keeping us from the very meaning and purpose we crave. But what if the path forward isn't about banishing the darkness, but about finding the courage to face it? What if the solution has been waiting for us for 2,000 years, encoded in a strange and powerful metaphor? To understand this, we need to turn to one of the great pioneers of the human mind, the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. Jung proposed that our psyche, our total personality, is not just the person we think we are, the part we show to the world. He called that part the ego. He said there's a vast, unseen territory within us he called the unconscious, and living in that unconscious is a figure he named the shadow. Imagine your personality is a house. The living room is your ego. It's clean, it's well lit, you invite guests in. This is where you put your strengths, your accomplishments, your socially acceptable traits. But every house has a basement, a place where you throw the things you don't want to look at. The broken furniture, the old baggage, the embarrassing stuff. That basement is your shadow. It's home to everything you've repressed and denied about yourself because you were taught it was bad or unacceptable. Your shame, your secret fears, your rage, your vulnerability, your unfulfilled desires. Now, we spend most of our lives trying to keep that basement door locked. We are terrified of what's down there. We believe that if we let that stuff out, it will destroy our carefully constructed life in the living room. But Jung's most radical insight was this: the basement is still part of the house, and the more you ignore it, the more the mold and rot down there will affect the entire structure. The shadow doesn't want to be exiled. It wants to be integrated. And this is where a strange story from the book of Numbers, later referenced by Jesus in the Gospel of John, becomes a profound psychological roadmap. The story goes like this. The Israelites are wandering in the desert. They are complaining, they are miserable, they have lost their faith, and suddenly they are attacked by venomous serpents. People are being bitten, and they are dying. The very ground has become hostile. In their desperation, they cry out to Moses for help, and Moses prays. Now, what would you expect God's solution to be? Maybe a magic antidote? A protective barrier? Maybe just making the snakes disappear? Number. The instruction is something far stranger. God tells Moses, "Make a snake of bronze and mount it on a pole, and it shall be that everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live." Let that sink in. The cure for the snake bite is to look at an image of the very thing that is killing you. To be healed from the poison, you must willingly confront the symbol of the poison. You cannot look away. You cannot pretend it's not there. You must turn, face it, and see it for what it is. This is not a story about ancient magic. This is a perfect, timeless diagram of shadow integration. The venomous serpents are the eruption of our own shadow content. They are the toxic thoughts, the self-criticism, the unprocessed trauma that bites us from the unconscious and poisons our lives. The suffering and death they cause is the anxiety, the depression, the creative block, the feeling of being spiritually dead. And the divine cure? It's a psychological prescription. Forge a symbol of your suffering. Create a conscious representation of what's in your shadow, your pain, your fear, your shame, and lift it up. Bring it out of the darkness of the unconscious basement and into the light of conscious awareness. You don't have to like it. You don't have to condone it. You just have to look at it. Willingly. Without judgment. In that courageous act of seeing, the venom loses its power. When you consciously acknowledge your shame, it can no longer control you from the shadows. When you face your fear, it ceases to be a terrifying monster and becomes manageable energy. This is the healing. Now, in the passage from John's Gospel, Jesus takes this powerful metaphor and elevates it to its ultimate conclusion. He says to Nicodemus, "Just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the desert, so must the Son of Man be lifted up." He is connecting that healing act of looking at the source of suffering to his own fate. From a Jungian perspective, this is breathtaking. If the serpent represents the integration of our personal shadow, the lifting up of the Son of Man on the cross represents the integration of the ultimate archetypal shadow of humanity: pain, betrayal, suffering, and death itself. It is a symbol of the self, Jung's term for the total, whole, integrated personality. The self is the organizing principle within us that can contain and unite all opposites. It is the part of you that is both human and divine, both flawed and perfect, both wounded and whole. What this symbol tells us is that wholeness is not found by avoiding suffering, but by passing through it. It is found by integrating the darkest, most painful aspects of the human experience into a new, more resilient, and more compassionate consciousness. The message is not condemnation for our darkness, but the promise of salvation through the integration of that darkness. As Jung himself said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." So, what does this mean for you right now in your life? It's beautiful psychology, but how do we practice it? How do we lift up the serpent of our own self-criticism and anxiety? It begins with small acts of courage. Here are 3 practical ways to start. First, acknowledge the serpent. You have to name what's biting you. Stop saying, "I'm just feeling anxious," and get specific. Take out a journal and write down the ugly truth you've been avoiding. I am ashamed that I failed at my last business. I am terrified that I am unlovable. I am angry at my parents for things I've never said. Writing it down is the first step of forging it into a symbol. You are taking the chaotic, venomous feeling and giving it form. You are lifting it up out of the unconscious and onto the page. Second, practice compassionate observation. When the Israelites looked at the bronze serpent, they weren't asked to judge it or even to love it. They were simply asked to see it. Can you do the same for your own flaws? The next time that inner critic starts its toxic loop, can you take a breath and just observe it? Not as the truth, but as a symptom, as the venom of an old wound. You can say to yourself, there is the shame. There is the fear. You create a little bit of space between you and the poison. In that space, healing happens. Third, share your symbol in a safe place. The serpent was lifted up in the middle of the camp for all to see. Now, I'm not saying you should post your deepest insecurities on Instagram, but the healing power is magnified when our shadow is met not with condemnation, but with acceptance. This is the power of a trusted friend, a loving partner, or a good therapist. To be able to say, "This is the ugly part of me I've been hiding," and to have someone respond, "I see it, and I'm still here," is profoundly healing. It tells the deepest part of your psyche that you are not the monster you fear you are. You are simply whole. This ancient path is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming complete. The goal is not to eliminate your shadow. That's impossible. A person with no shadow is not a person at all. The goal is to integrate it. Because hidden in your shadow is not just your pain, it is your greatest strength. Your sensitivity, your creativity, your passion, your untapped potential. It's all there, waiting in the basement. The message of this story is one of radical hope. It says that your wounds, your flaws, and your failures are not signs of your condemnation. They are the very raw material for your transformation. The world does not need another filtered, curated, perfect-looking person. The world needs you in your full, complex, and integrated wholeness. So do not run from the poison any longer. Find the courage to look at it. Because within it, lifted into the light of your own awareness, is the blueprint for your healing. It is the path to a durable, meaningful life. It is the path to yourself.